Have you ever heard words so cruel you wished you could erase them forever? My name is Claire Adams. I'm 27, and just 7 days ago I graduated with my MBA from Stanford, something no one in my family had ever even imagined possible. You'd think that would finally make me the golden child. But in the Adams household, I was always the quiet blur in the background. My sister Ashley, future doctor, was our parents' shining star. I was just the sensible one, the one who paid bills, handled problems, and kept things running without applause. For years, I told myself that if I just worked harder, achieved more, sacrificed a little extra, they'd finally see me. Yet deep down, I knew I'd always feel like a stranger in my own home. What I never expected was that the night meant to celebrate my success would shatter the thin illusion that we were ever close. That evening, my parents would say something so cutting it would split us beyond repair. And in that instant, I understood. The daughter they never truly embraced was about to disappear from their lives for good. Have you ever had your happiest moment poisoned by something heartless? If any part of this feels familiar, maybe my story will remind you that your worth isn't up for debate. We met at Delmonico's, one of Seattle's most refined restaurants. White linen tablecloths, chandeliers glowing gold overhead, and the quiet hum of affluence in every corner. I had reserved the private dining room myself and paid for everything, the food, the wine, every detail. It wasn't about flaunting anything. After years of juggling jobs, loans, and sleepless nights, I wanted just one evening to honor something I had earned. I greeted each guest with a polite smile that never quite reached my eyes. Professors, co-workers, my supervisor from the consulting firm that had just offered me a full-time role, classmates who looked sincerely happy for me. Then my parents arrived, Susan and Robert Adams, perfectly styled, composed, as though this were their achievement. They brought no bouquet, no card. Ashley didn't come either. Supposedly, she had a hospital shift. I suspected she simply didn't care to attend an event that wasn't centered on her. I introduced everyone, watching my parents shake hands and accept compliments meant for me. One professor beamed at them. "You must be incredibly proud of Claire. A Stanford MBA is remarkable." My mother let out a light, airy chuckle. "We're proud of both our daughters," she said. "But Ashley, our youngest, she's in medical school now. Long hours in the ER, saving lives. That's what really matters." Silence settled like a weight. Even the silverware seemed to pause midair. I kept smiling, stiff and rehearsed, the kind of smile built purely for survival. A few minutes later, my manager stood to toast me. He spoke about my persistence, how I had led our intern team and steadied the firm during tight deadlines. "Claire is one of the most capable young consultants I've ever worked with," he said. "She's going far." The applause was warm, sincere. I glanced at my parents, searching for even a spark of pride. My father gave a small laugh. "She's smart, of course. But Ashley saves lives every day. That's real pride." It sounded rehearsed, like my entire existence was just a supporting act to Ashley's headline performance. The savior. The hero. The one who mattered. Around the table, shoulders stiffened. Eyes shifted awkwardly. One coworker tried to ease the tension. "You must still be so proud of Claire," she told my mother gently. "Her accomplishments are extraordinary." My mother's smile cooled. "I suppose it's fine," she replied. My father quickly redirected the conversation back to Ashley, her night shifts, her rotations, the grateful patience. Then he added casually, "Compared to a doctor, an MBA isn't quite the same." That was it. I pushed my chair back, the scrape cutting through the room. Every conversation stopped. My voice surprised me. It was steady, stronger than I felt. "Do you have any idea what it took for me to get here? The sleepless nights? The hours I worked so I wouldn't cost you a cent?" My mother's lips pressed thin with silent disapproval. My father looked at me as though I were making a scene. "I paid for Ashley's tuition. I sent money when the lights were shut off. I went without so this family could stay afloat. And still, I'm reduced to just someone behind a desk." The air grew heavy. No one breathed. I wasn't talking to the guests anymore, only to the two people who had never truly seen me. If I'm so insignificant, I said, "Who do you think kept this family from collapsing all these years?" My father stood, his face flushed. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. His words cut clean enough. "We wish we'd never had a daughter like you." A collective gasp. A spoon clattered onto a plate. For a second, my vision blurred, not from tears, but from sudden clarity. I looked around the table at the stunned faces of people who valued me. Then I looked back at the two who had just erased me. When I spoke again, my voice was calm. "If that's how you feel, then maybe it's time I live as though I was never yours to begin with." And I walked out. If I had never truly belonged, maybe it was time to stop pretending I did. I didn't cry that night. Not when I stepped into the drizzle outside the restaurant. Not when my heels echoed against Seattle's wet pavement. Not even when I reached my apartment, slipped off my shoes, and sat alone in the dark. But the next morning, when I unlocked my phone and saw 11 missed calls from my parents and a single message, "You embarrassed us. I hope you're proud." Something inside me cracked. It wasn't grief. It was exhaustion. Because this wasn't new. It was just the latest chapter in a pattern I'd finally stopped excusing. I wasn't shocked anymore. I was done. Growing up, I was the quiet one fading into corners while Ashley dazzled in every spotlight. We were only 2 years apart, yet the distance in how we were loved felt like decades. Ashley had piano recitals, participation ribbons, birthday parties with towering cakes and golden balloons spelling her name. Once, I got a cake that read, "Happy birthday, Ashley O. and Claire," my name squeezed awkwardly into the corner. It became a family joke. They laughed. I smiled the way I always did. I learned early that achievements only counted if they aligned with what they valued. When I won first place in a regional math competition, glowing with pride, I thought maybe, finally, it would matter. Mom didn't even look up from the laundry. "That's nice," she said. "But Ashley's volunteering at the hospital. That's real impact." Real impact. That phrase echoed through every comparison. Apparently, nothing counted unless it came with a stethoscope. Still, I kept going. I believed that if I accomplished enough, one day they would finally say the words I had chased my entire life. "We're proud of you, Claire." So I worked relentlessly through college, 3 jobs at once. Opening the coffee shop before sunrise, cleaning offices after night classes, tutoring neighborhood kids on weekends. Every dollar went toward household bills and Ashley's ever-growing medical school costs. No one asked how I managed. They just accepted it, as though it was my obligation. Michael used to joke that I could balance a family budget faster than I could recognize my own value. He'd grin when he said it, but there was always a softness in his eyes afterward. Michael had been my closest friend since college, the one person who saw beyond the armor I wore. His life wasn't identical to mine, but the tune was familiar. His father, a strict former military officer, demanded absolute obedience. When Michael chose art over engineering, he was cut off entirely. But unlike me, Michael didn't spend years chasing approval. "You can't keep watering dead roots, Claire," he once told me. "It's not your fault nothing grows." At the time, I dismissed it as bitterness. I still believed loyalty meant giving and giving until there was nothing left. But that night, for the first time, his words settled into me. After the dinner unraveled, Michael called. I couldn't answer. I just wasn't ready. But I listened to his voicemail again and again. "Claire, I'm proud of you. Not just for speaking up, but for finally walking away. Call me when you can breathe." I couldn't breathe yet. Not fully. But something inside me had shifted. For years, I'd clung to the fragile belief that if I stayed quiet and worked harder, my parents would eventually turn around and truly see me. That hope had been my anchor. Now I was beginning to understand that freedom might only come when you stop pleading for love from people who have no intention of giving it. When I left my old apartment, I packed lightly. My laptop, a handful of worn clothes, the books I couldn't part with, and one framed photo from college, Michael and me sitting on the campus lawn, coffee cups in hand, grinning at a future that still felt limitless. That was before everything became complicated. Before I forgot how to smile like that. I rented a small 1-bedroom in Bellevue. Nothing extravagant. Hardwood floors, white walls, a large window overlooking a quiet street lined with maple trees. It wasn't impressive, but it was mine. Paid for with my own money. Chosen and arranged by me alone.
No Ashley. No Susan. No Robert.
Just Claire. That first night, I slept on a mattress on the floor, staring at the ceiling in complete stillness. At first, the silence felt empty. But as I lay there, I realized it wasn't emptiness. It was peace. Something I hadn't known in years. The next morning, I opened my laptop and checked my bank account. 3 automatic payments were scheduled: my parents' utilities, Ashley's tuition installment, part of the mortgage. I canceled all 3. My hands trembled slightly as I confirmed each one. Then a strange lightness filled my chest.
No speeches. No warnings.
Just done. Over the following weeks, I began building a life that belonged solely to me. At the consulting firm, things accelerated. My manager assigned me a major restructuring project for a Fortune 500 tech company. I threw myself into it, late nights, leading meetings, solving problems without hesitation. For the first time, I wasn't chasing validation. I was working because I wanted to, and people noticed. More meetings. More invitations to contribute. My opinions carried weight. My name began circulating, not as Ashley's sister or the dependable daughter, but as Claire Adams, someone rising on her own merit. Evenings became sacred. I returned to my quiet apartment and slowly filled it with pieces that felt like fragments of who I was. A soft gray couch. A lamp shaped like a tree branch. A tall bookshelf where I finally unpacked my paperbacks. Succulents along the window. Candles lit while jazz played softly as I cooked dinner for one. It felt indulgent. Almost selfish. And it felt incredible. One Saturday, Michael showed up with a bottle of wine and 2 large bags of Thai food. Still breathing, he asked as he stepped inside, like he'd always belonged there. I smiled. I think I'm finally starting to. We sat cross-legged on the floor, eating noodles, drinking cheap Cabernet, laughing about college memories. For a while, everything felt light.
Easy.
I like this place, he said, glancing around. It feels like you. I hesitated. I'm still figuring out what that means. He raised his glass. To figuring it out, our glasses clinked. A gentle warmth spread through me. Not pride. Not relief. Something softer. Maybe the beginning of accepting myself, or at least moving in that direction. Later, as I draped a blanket over the couch, my phone buzzed.
Mom.
Then Dad. No messages. Just 10 missed calls. I didn't answer. I didn't look. I silenced the phone, wrapped the blanket around myself, and watched streetlights flicker outside the window. They had chosen silence for years. Now I was offering it back. A silence they would finally have to feel. Then came a knock. Not tentative. Not polite. Firm. Demanding. The kind that assumes entry. I glanced at the clock. 4:13 p.m. Tuesday. I had just returned from work, still in heels, blazer slipping off my shoulders. When I opened the door, I froze. There stood my parents, Robert and Susan Adams, composed as ever, as if nothing had fractured between us. My father in a crisp button-down and polished shoes. My mother rigid in her beige trench coat, arms folded tight, lips pressed thin. I said nothing. "We need to talk," my mother said. The last message she'd sent accused me of humiliating them. Yet here they were, stepping past me without waiting for permission, walking into my apartment like it still belonged to them. I shut the door carefully behind them. They sat on my couch, the one I had bought with my own money, in the living room I had built from years of work they'd never acknowledged. I remained standing. "Claire," my father began, adopting the smooth tone he used in boardrooms, "Ashley has encountered some setbacks." Setbacks. Her hospital internship was terminated, my mother added briskly. Budget cuts. And her tuition balance hasn't been covered, my father continued. If it's not resolved, she may be forced to leave the program. And I asked evenly. My mother's response was immediate. "We need your help." There it was.
No apology. No acknowledgement.
Just expectation. Help, I repeated. The word felt unfamiliar. Claire, you understand how serious this is, my father said. If she falls behind, she could lose everything. She? I asked softly. Or you? My mother's eyes sharpened. Don't be childish. A short, humorless laugh escaped me. I gave up years of my life for this family. Paid bills when the power was cut. Bought Ashley's textbooks. Covered her rent and groceries. I sacrificed so she could succeed. And the one time I asked for recognition, you said I disgraced you. We were angry, my father snapped. You were out of line. I stepped closer, heels striking the floor with deliberate rhythm. No, I said calmly. You disrespected me for years. Quietly.
Consistently.
Until it became normal. You didn't raise me. You drained me. My mother straightened. We're your parents. We gave you life. And I carried it. I replied, the words rising from somewhere deeper than anger. I carried it while you stood on my back and applauded someone else for standing taller. The air tightened between us. You don't get to walk in here and pretend none of it happened, I said. You don't get to act like you never told me you wished I'd never been born. My father opened his mouth, then closed it again. I moved to the door and pulled it open. If you came to apologize, I would listen. But if you came to ask for more, that conversation ended the night you disowned me. Neither moved. This is family, my mother insisted, her voice rising. Blood is blood. Not when it's poison, I answered, gesturing toward the hallway. They left stiffly. Before stepping out, my mother turned back. You'll regret this. One day you'll realize you need your family. I held her gaze. I already have one. It just doesn't include you. The door clicked shut. And for the first time, there was only quiet inside me.
No guilt.
No fear.
No second-guessing.
Just clean, open air. This time I didn't cry. I smiled. The weeks that followed moved in steady silence. No calls. No messages. Just peace. Silence. The very silence they once required from me. Only now it wasn't obedience. It was power. It wasn't the hush of someone shrinking away. It was the steady calm of someone who had finally discovered her voice within the quiet. At work, I immersed myself completely. I ran meetings with a confidence that felt unfamiliar at first, like trying on a jacket that didn't seem mine, until I realized it had been tailored for me all along. When I spoke, people listened. Clients began requesting me specifically. Then came the defining opportunity, a multi-million-dollar restructuring project for a major tech company based in Redmond. The kind of assignment that shapes a young consultant's future. My manager placed it in my hands without hesitation.
You've earned this, he said.
Don't look back. And I didn't. For 6 weeks, I lived inside that project. Strategy calls. Late-night presentations. Spreadsheets blurring until my eyes burned. But this time it wasn't exhaustion. It was momentum. It was purpose. It was mine. Each night, I returned to an apartment that finally felt whole. The gray couch layered with soft cushions. Books neatly arranged on shelves instead of hidden in boxes. Candles casting a gentle glow in the corners. This wasn't the house I grew up in. It was a home I had built myself, one emotional brick at a time. Michael came by often. Sometimes we barely spoke, just ate leftovers in companionable silence. Other nights we played old vinyl records and debated our college playlists. You've changed, he said once, leaning back with a glass of wine in hand. Changed how? I asked. You seem complete, he replied softly. Like you stopped waiting for someone to finally choose you. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The quiet warmth in my chest answered for me. Then the article happened. Our project surpassed every projection. The client renewed and doubled their investment, publicly praising our team's strategy. And there it was, my name, bold and unmistakable, at the center. A local business magazine asked for an interview. I hesitated. I wasn't used to stepping into the spotlight. But I agreed. During the interview, I didn't just talk about numbers or growth. I spoke honestly about what it feels like to grow up unseen, to chase approval that never arrives, and to finally let go of the need for it. I didn't name anyone. I didn't have to. The headline read, "Rising Star, Claire Adams on Leading Through Resilience." It spread quickly. Hundreds of reactions turned into thousands. My inbox filled with messages from strangers who said my words felt like their own. Some admitted they cried reading it. One line kept circulating, "You don't have to earn love from people who treat it like a bargaining chip." Michael sent me a screenshot with that sentence circled. "Claire," he wrote, "you just sparked something." But not everyone applauded. Emails from my parents poured in sharp, furious. "You've disgraced this family. How dare you air our business publicly? Ashley is struggling while you're out there seeking attention."
I didn't reply.
They moved from anger to guilt to silence again. And I remained steady. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to justify myself or mend what they'd broken. I let it stay broken. And I didn't rush to clean it up. Strangely, even as everything else fractured, I didn't. One evening, I stood in front of my floor-to-ceiling window with a glass of wine, watching Seattle's skyline shimmer like it was quietly cheering me on. I thought about the girl who used to send half her paycheck home, waiting for appreciation that never came. I remembered that dinner. That single sentence, "We wish we'd never had a daughter like you." I once believed silence meant defeat. Now I understood it could mean strength. The celebration I planned afterward was intentionally small. No grand venue. No forced guest list. Just a handful of close friends and colleagues who had stood by me when things unraveled. And Michael, of course, who arrived with 2 bottles of wine and an oversized cheese board he insisted on arranging himself. It wasn't a party for success. It was a toast to survival. I had just signed a leadership contract with the firm, a role I negotiated and secured entirely on my own. No one's influence.
No hidden strings.
The apartment glowed in warm amber light. Jazz and indie music hummed softly. Beyond the windows, Puget Sound shimmered under the night sky, the city alive and steady. Laughter filled the room. Someone raised a glass to me, and I laughed too. Not the careful, practiced laugh I once used to smooth tension, but a real one.
Free.
Effortless. Like breathing deeply for the first time. No one mentioned Ashley. No one brought up my parents.
No sympathetic glances.
What I saw instead was pride, and something gentler. Something that felt like love. Michael tapped his glass against mine. "Look at this," he said, gesturing around the room. "This is the family you created." I nodded slowly. "The kind that chose me," I replied. Later, after everyone left, I stepped onto the balcony. The air off the bay was cool and clean, brushing through my hair like it was sweeping away the last traces of the past. Below, Seattle's lights flickered like scattered stars. I thought about the years of invisible sacrifice, the giving until there was nothing left. The words from that dinner I will never unhear. But I also remembered the first time I defended myself. The first night I slept here alone and felt safe. The first time someone said they were proud of me and truly meant it. And I realized something. We don't get to choose the family we're born into. But we do get to choose which parts of that story we carry forward and which ones we finally release. Love that demands constant proof isn't love. And freedom might simply be the courage to stop chasing what was never freely given. My phone buzzed inside. Another message from a stranger who had read the article. "Your story helped me walk away from pain I thought I had to accept," it read. I smiled. I wasn't alone. And neither were they. I stepped back inside and switched off the lights. The room still held echoes of laughter, the faint scent of candles and wine lingering in the air. I had spent years asking to be seen. Now I was done asking. I was building. I was choosing. And for the first time, I knew exactly who I was. Not a daughter to be controlled. Not a safety net. Not the invisible thread keeping everyone else intact. Just me. Whole.
Free.
I may not be the daughter they wanted, but I am, finally, the woman I chose to become.